Welcome pre-cal students to the homework help video, page 632, numbers 33 through 43 odd. Let's go ahead and get started. Get out your books, get out your calculators, pens, pencils, and whatever you need, and let's go ahead and get started. For numbers 33 and 35, the directions say multiply or divide. Multiply or divide, and leave your answer in trig notation. So number 33, you're going to find this really easy, students. First of all, we divide these two numbers here, top divided by the bottom, so 12 divided by 3 is 4. And then we subtract our angles. Top minus the bottom, 48 minus 6 is 42. 48 minus 6 is 42. So the answer would be cosine of 42 degrees plus I sine 42 degrees. Well, that was hard. Piece of cake. Moving on. Number 35. Okay. Here we're multiplying two numbers written in trig form. Well, first of all, let me grab my calculator here. We're going to multiply outside number by outside number. So we're going to multiply 2.5 times 4.5. And if you do that correctly, you will get 11.25. And then we're going to add our angles. 35 plus 21, 35 plus 21. So we would have cosine of 56 degrees plus I sine 56 degrees. That's simple. Okay, students, so really pretty simple. Multiply the outside numbers and add the angles when you're multiplying. And let's go back a problem when you're dividing. Divide the outside numbers and subtract the angles. Okay, let's take a look now at, it's not working here. Hold on one second. Numbers 37 through 43 odd, and the directions say convert first to trig notation and then multiply or divide. Okay, when I take a look at number 37 here, I guess I wrote a little too big. I'll shrink that down. There we go. And let's go ahead and first of all convert this over to trig form. I'll do it very quickly. I would go over a positive 1, then down to negative 1, so positive 1, negative 1. There's my triangle. So a length of 1 and a length of 1. If I found the hypotenuse, I'm not doing a lot of this work for you. Now, we've done the Pythagorean Theorem a million times this year already. So using Pythagorean Theorem to find the hypotenuse, you would get square root of 2. And then to find this missing angle here, you would say tangent of your missing angle. I guess we'll call it x right here. So tangent of x equals 1 over 1, opposite over adjacent, opposite over adjacent. And the angle you want, according to your chart, is 45 degrees. So just like that, I draw my line all the way around the hypotenuse, and now just like that, I have this written in trig form. So the hypotenuse is square root of 2, and then cosine of 315 degrees, plus I sine 315 degrees. And of course the I here out front, this I just stands for imaginary number I. Okay, now let's go ahead and find trig form of the second one here. It would be positive 2, so over 2 and up 2. Draw your triangle. So I have a 2 here and a 2 here. And so the length of the hypotenuse is going to be, it should be 2 square root of 2, I think. I did it quickly in my head. Let me think this through for you. 4 plus 4 is 8. Yeah, what you would get if you use Pythagorean Theorem, you'll get square root of 8. But remember, square root of 8 can be written down to the square, can be broken down to the square root of 4 times 2, because 4 times 2 is 8. And then you know the square root of 4, so cross off the 4 and put a 2 on the outside, so 2 square root of 2. Would I take off points if you use square root of 8? Probably a point, not much. You really should use radicals that are simplified as far as you can. Now let's find the measure of this angle x right here. So we would say the tangent of angle x equals opposite over adjacent, 2 over 2, and 2 over 2 is 1. So again, what angle gives you 1 when you take the tangent of it? 45 degrees. So we're going to put 45 degrees. Okay. So I rotate here up to the hypotenuse. So there we go. Just like that, I have written my standard form complex number in trig form. The hypotenuse is 2 square root of 2. And then I would have cosine of 45 degrees plus I sine 45 degrees. And now let's go ahead and multiply those two together. When you're multiplying trig numbers, you multiply outside times the outside. Be careful here. Square root of 2 times 2 square root of 2. Well, there's a 1 right here, so 1 times 2 would give you a 2. And then square root of 2 times square root of 2 would give you square root of 4. And then, of course, the square root of 4 is really 2, so you really have this outside number 2 right here, and then the square root of 4 is just 2, so you have 2 times 2, which gives you 4. So square root of 2 times 2 square root of 2 is 4. And then when you multiply, you add your angles, and 315 plus 45 is 360. So cosine of 360 degrees plus I sine 360 degrees. And we're getting to 360 by adding our two angles together. There we go. 3 down and 3 more to go. All right, let's go ahead. Now, 1 minus I, didn't we just do that one back here? Yeah, we sure did. So let's save ourselves some time here. The next problem, number 39, we already found the trig form of that number right there. And so let's go back a page and let's highlight it and let's bring it over to the other page so we have it. And so the top of your fraction, 1 minus I, we already found the trig form is right here. Now let's do 1 plus I. That'll be pretty easy. 1 plus 1i, so over 1 and up 1. So there's my triangle. Over 1, up 1, angle x. If you use the Pythagorean theorem, the hypotenuse is the square root of 2. And then I'm saying the angle tangent of x equals opposite over adjacent. So tangent of x equals opposite over adjacent, 1 over 1. That angle would once again be 45 degrees. So I rotate from here to here, so 45 degrees. So this bottom number in trig form would be square root of 2, because that's your hypotenuse right here. And then cosine of 45 degrees plus I sine 45 degrees. All right, let me erase this, give us some room here. And so what I've taught you to do is when you're dividing complex numbers in trig form, what I've taught you to do is first of all to take your outside numbers and you divide them. So we're going to take our outside numbers and we're going to divide those. And those outside numbers would be square root of 2 over square root of 2. So square root of 2 divided by square root of 2 is 1. Then put your parentheses, and then you subtract your angle. So 35 minus, or 315 minus 45 would be 270 degrees. Plus I sine, and then once again 270 degrees, because 315 minus 45 is 270. So we're cruising right along. I think you'll find this homework assignment pretty easy. And let's move on to number 41. Okay, students, let's take this first complex number written in standard form and let's convert it over to trig form. So we have 3 square root of 3. I'm not sure exactly what that would be. It's really not a big deal to me. I'll type it into my calculator. It would be 5.19. So we're going to go over 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll go over about this far, and then we go down -3. Because we have a -3 right here. So over to about here and down to about here. And the reason I don't care if I get it drawn perfectly, as long as I label my sides, as long as I label this length right here, 3 square root of 3, and as long as I label this length here 3, that's all that really matters, okay? Now using Pythagorean's theorem, let's find the hypotenuse. I might have to have a little help on this one here. Let's see. We have 3 square root of 3 squared plus 3 squared. Now 3 squared is obviously 9, But 3 square root of 3 squared, that's going to be 3 square root of 3 times 3 square root of 3. Outside number times outside number, that's 9. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is square root of 9. And of course I know the square root of 9 is 3. So here's my outside number 9 right here, and the square root of 9 is 3, so 27. 9 times 3 is 27, and if you add those together you get 36, and the square root of 36 is 6. So there. That didn't take too long. So I found my hypotenuse, 6. Now let's go ahead and find our angle x right here. So we're going to say the tangent of angle x equals opposite over hypotenuse, which is, or opposite over adjacent, excuse me. So 3 over 3 square root of 3. Now this is on your table. If you'll reduce this, your outside 3 and your outside 3 would cancel out, so you're left with 1 over square root of 3. And 1 over square root of 3 is the same thing as the square root of 3 over 3. And so if you'll look at your table, you're going to see, I believe, I've got to check myself, I believe that's going to be 30 degrees. And yes, it is. So x here, when you take the tangent of 30, you get square root of 3 over 3. So this angle here is 30 degrees. Now that's not the angle you want. Remember, you always start here on the positive x and rotate counterclockwise until you come to the hypotenuse. So that's 330 degrees. So I have a hypotenuse of 6 and an angle of 330. So a hypotenuse of 6 and an angle of 330. There we go. Now this one's going to be really easy because it's going to fall right on an axis. And those are really easy to do. Let me show you what I mean. 2i is the same thing as 0 plus 2i. Remember, the real number comes first. So if there is no real number, you put a 0. If there's no imaginary number, you put a 0. So 0 plus 2i is the same thing as 2i. So that means I go left and right 0, and I go up 2. It's like having an ordered pair 0, 2. It's the exact same thing. All right. So there's my point. So the hypotenuse is just the length of this line right here. That's all you have. You don't have a right triangle. So the length of this line right here is 2. And I rotated 90 degrees. So that's it. Isn't that easy? So the hypotenuse, even though it's not really a hypotenuse, but this is what we do when it falls on an axis, okay? We see how long that line is there, and then we rotate to that axis. In this case, it's 90 degrees. So it's pretty obvious then. I'm just going to simply have a hypotenuse of 2 and then an angle of 90 degrees. So cosine of 90 plus I sine 90. There we go. And now I'm ready to go ahead and multiply these two trig form complex numbers. Well, we multiply outside times the outside. So 6 times 2 would be 12. And then we add 330 plus 90. So cosine of 420 degrees. And then for the sines, we also add the exact same angles, so we would get 420 degrees. Now I have told you that I would like your angles to be less than 360 or between 0 and 360. 360 is okay, just not bigger than 360. So if you have 420 degrees, remember that's the same thing as rotating around once. That's 360, and then going 60 more degrees for 420. So the leftover is what I want, and the leftover is 60 degrees. So really I want you to write your answer. Don't use 420, please. And I am going to make that a requirement. You're going to use 60 instead. And so put a 60 here. All right, there we go. One more to go. 5 down and 1 to go. So we've done well today. All right, number 43. Let's go ahead and take this top number here, 2 square root of 3 minus 2i, and let's write that in trig form very quickly. Now, 2 square root of 3 in decimal form is 3.46, about 3.5. So, and then negative 2 is negative 2. So I'm going to go over about 3.5 and then down negative 2, and that's just an estimation. I'm going to draw my triangle. Now, this length right here is 2 square root of 3, and this length going down is 2. Let's go ahead and find the length of the hypotenuse here very quickly. So we're going to have 2 square root of 3 squared plus 2 squared, Pythagorean Theorem. And let's see, 2 square root of 3 squared, that's like 2 square root of 3 times 2 square root of 3. Outside number times outside number, that's 4. Inside number times inside number, that's 9. We know the square root of 9 is 3, so 4 times 3, so we get 12. So 2 square root of 3 squared is 12, plus 2 times 2 is 4, so we end up with the square root of 16, which is 4. So now we know our hypotenuse is 4. So really, if I wasn't teaching this, I could be going a lot faster. So I think you guys can do this pretty fast. Now my angle here is x. Here's my opposite. Here's my adjacent. So tangent of x is opposite over adjacent, 2 over 2 square root of 3. Your outside numbers reduce, so really you have 1 over square root of 3, and then we know by now 1 over square root of 3 is the same thing as square root of 3 over 3. So this is like the last problem we did. I'm not sure if I left it up. I didn't. I erased it, but the angle here is 30. If you'll look at your table, you'll see that the tangent of 30 is square root of 3 over 3. So now I know my angle on the inside is 30. So I know my hypotenuse. I know the angle on the inside is 30, so I'm going to rotate around to the hypotenuse, so I have a hypotenuse of 4 and an angle of 330 degrees. So that'll be the top part. Let's go ahead and write that. Hypotenuse of 4 and then an angle of 330. So cosine of 330 degrees plus I sine 330 degrees all over. And now let's take a look at the bottom. We know we're going to go over 1, so positive 1, and then up square root of 3. That's somewhere 1 point something, so we'll just say about right here. So there's my triangle. So I know this has a length of 1 right here, and I know going up I have a height of square root of 3. And so I can probably do Pythagorean Theorem in my head. If I square root of 3, that's 3. If I square 1, that's 1. Add it, you get 4. And the square root of 4 is 2. So use Pythagorean Theorem and you'll see we'll get a 2 there. Now let's find this angle x, okay? I think it's going to be 30 degrees again. Tangent of x equals, no, it will not be actually. Tangent of x equals opposite over adjacent. So square root of 3 over 1, which is really square root of 3. So square root of 3 over 1. And you'll get 60 degrees. If you look at your table, you'll see the tangent of 60 is square root of 3. So this angle is 60. So I'm going to rotate from here to the hypotenuse. So I know my hypotenuse is 2. I know the angle I want is 60. So I can go ahead now and very quickly write this in trig form. Hypotenuse of 2. And my angle is 60. And then I'm finally ready to divide. And I think that we can do that relatively quickly. And of course, we've been talking the whole class period about, or the whole homework help video, when you're dividing complex numbers in trig form, you divide these two numbers. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then you subtract your angle. So 330 minus 60 is 270. So the cosine of 270 degrees plus the I sine of 270 degrees. And there we go. That's it. So congratulations, finished another homework assignment. Please call or email if you have any questions at all. Please do that, okay? I'm here to help you if you'll contact me.